Alright guys, now see if you can guess my favorite Disney animated television show in 3 tries. Oh yeah, that's right, it's Gargoyles, an original Disney property with some teeth, and claws, and glowing eyes, and one that wasn't based on or spun off of anything else that came before it. Debuting in 1994, side note, damn that was a good year for cartoons, Gargoyles was a departure from the type of shows produced by Disney at the time, aimed at a slightly older audience, and without the backing of a pre-established franchise to bring in fans, this show was actually kind of a risk. Now, at first glance, Gargoyles appears to be the latest in a long line of cartoons created in the formula of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, these guys are great! They're warriors, just like us!
The show features a small unit of color-coded heroes who aren't quite human and don't have superpowers, but who do have roots in some antiquated culture and come out at night to defend the citizens of New York City with the aid of a human woman who also helps to keep them hidden from the outside world. All of these things are true, however, Gargoyles is so much more than the sum of its parts. Despite the track record of its parent company, despite its somewhat formulaic sounding premise, and against all the odds, this show managed to become something truly special.
They are fascinated by the things they see on the television. Every night they rush to turn it on.
Gargoyles was produced and co-developed by Greg Weisman, who would go on to be heavily involved in the Spectacular Spider-Man and Young Justice. Most of the show's story was also shaped and written by husband and wife writing duo Michael Reaves and Bryn Chandler Reaves, mostly known for their work on Batman the Animated Series. Appropriately, Gargoyles doesn't feel much at all like either the Ninja Turtles or its fellow Disney cartoons, most of which had a fairly goofy tone, no pun intended. Instead, it feels closer in tone to some of the contemporary comic book shows that were out around the same time, chief among them, Batman the Animated Series, which Gargoyles was frequently compared to with its darker color palette, striking dynamic visuals, and a willingness to take its story in mature directions. For a kids show, especially from Disney which thrived on its squeaky clean brand aesthetic, this was pretty hardcore.
A lot of times when you write animation, it's usually just one character whacking the other on the head or something like that. And we really got into some interesting stuff from the bottoms of our psyches for it.
Pay a man enough, and he'll walk barefoot into hell.
Not to mention that opening theme, so badass.
Now here in Manhattan,
the spell is broken, and we live again.
The premise of Gargoyles was based on, well, gargoyles. Historical gargoyles were statues of grotesque creatures made to look like they grew out of buildings from waist or neck. They were a component of medieval Gothic architecture, and most served as decorative waterspouts to divert and prevent rainwater from running down the sides of important buildings, which would erode the craftsmanship and structure over time. Even the word gargoyle refers to the sound you make when you have water in the back of your throat, and derives from the same Latin root word as the English word gargle. Not all gargoyles served this purpose, however. There were others which had more complete bodies and didn't function as spouts. Instead, these statues were said to stand as sentinels, protecting those within from evil spirits and demons, and this was the premise that inspired the show. While of course the real gargoyles were only statues, this show reimagines them as a race of humanoid bat-like creatures, who become stone by day but come alive at dusk to live in the night. Hey, kinda like me. The main group of gargoyles that we follow on the show, referred to as a clan, comes from medieval Scotland, where they reside on the battlements of Castle Wyvern. The gargoyle leader, Goliath, and his clan protect the castle and its human inhabitants from invasion by night and are in turn protected themselves during the day while they lie dormant and vulnerable. Despite serving well as protectors of the castle, the gargoyles are generally mistrusted by most of the humans, who think of them more as animals than people.
Captain, we are most seriously displeased to allow beasts in the dining hall.
Gargoyles are physically stronger and much more durable than us, though they aren't invincible, and most can use their wings to ride air currents and glide. Well, it's described as gliding, even though it's clear a lot of the time that these guys are capable of building and sustaining a whole lot more height than should really be possible the way that we're told their wings work, but it's not important. Let's get back on track. After a series of betrayals and tragic mishaps in the opening episodes, the majority of Goliath's clan is smashed to pieces during an attack by Viking raiders. Furthermore, in the aftermath of this attack, Goliath and the few remaining gargoyles are mistakenly blamed for escalating the conflict by the castle's inhabitants, prompting their magus, a sort of court sorcerer, to cast a spell on them, cursed to remain stone forever until a day comes when the castle rises above the clouds. Fast forward 1,000 years to present day 1994. An eccentric billionaire named David Xanatos has outright purchased the now ruined castle in order to have the entire thing moved brick by brick to the top of his massive, newly constructed skyscraper, the tallest building in New York City.
The
costs of this venture will be astronomical.
Start hiring crews. I want to begin as soon as possible.
Come nightfall on the final day of the castle's reconstruction, the Gargoyles reawaken after their millennium of slumber to the bizarre and alien-seeming world of Manhattan. The remainder of the show's first season tells the story of the Gargoyles familiarizing themselves with modern society and those who live in it. As they begin to feel at home in their new setting, they eventually vow to protect New York as they did their old castle from those who would do it and its people harm.
I see no walls to guard this city. How do you protect it from invaders?
Well, our biggest worries aren't from outside. They're from inside.
That I am all too familiar with.
Gargoyles unflinchingly tackles complex issues such as the nature of prejudice, as well as the need to adapt to change, even if it goes against your beliefs. The show even devotes an entire episode to stressing the dangers of being careless with firearms, wherein one of the main human characters is shot with an actual gun, and it's played 100% straight. That is just about the only instance of any actual violence, however, at least in the first season. For a show where the heroes are big monsters with sharp claws that can smash through walls, Gargoyles does rely pretty heavily on the tried and true method of picking up and throwing the bad guys or chasing them away to defeat them. It's okay though, not every kids show can be Beast Wars after all, and besides, there is still plenty of robot smashing goodness to be had. Our main character is the gargoyle leader, Goliath, played by the man with the most badass voice in the world, legendary actor of film and television, Keith David.
I've been denied everything, even my revenge!
David gives a gravitas to Goliath that excellently serves and accentuates the series' tone and the scope of its story. His primary concerns are the safety of the few remaining gargoyles under his care, as well as protecting their home, the castle. He may be a bit of a grim character, but underneath it all, Goliath has a good heart and often serves as the show's moral compass.
I'm making sure they don't cause us more trouble later.
No! To kill in the heat of battle is one thing, but not like this.
The rest of the gargoyle characters don't actually get names until later on when they all wake up. Apparently gargoyle culture doesn't have names. Goliath was only given his name by the humans back in medieval Scotland since he was their liaison.
My kind have no names, but you humans call me Goliath.
His fellow gargoyles, however, all choose names based on places in New York. First up, there's Hudson, the team's elderly mentor and retired former leader.
Does the sky need a name? Does the river?
The river's called the Hudson.
Lass. Then I will be the Hudson as well.
Great.
Hudson takes to this new world rather well, discovering the joys of television, while a trio of younger gargoyles, Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway, along with their sort of dog, Bronx, all love to explore the city.
This city is a fascinating place.
There are underground tubes with giant
Lights so bright they turn night into day.
all kinds of food!
Brooklyn develops an interest in youth culture, Broadway becomes a movie buff, and Lexington does machines. Each of these other gargoyles gets an episode to themselves where they get to star as the main character, and while Goliath is still definitely my favorite overall, out of the rest, I think I quite like Brooklyn. His episode Temptation is one of the stronger ones in the season.
Do you really think they would accept us with open arms?
No.
Then there's Elisa Maza, the New York City police detective who befriends the gargoyles early on in the series and becomes their most staunch human ally.
What exactly does a detective do, lass?
While I did compare Elisa to April O'Neil from the Ninja Turtles at the beginning of this video, aside from being the main human contact of the non-human heroes, the similarities pretty much stop there. Elisa almost always plays an active role in the story through her capacity as a detective, even when it comes to most of the action scenes. She and the gargoyles help each other out with their various goals, while she and Goliath begin to form a bond of friendship in this season which mirrors that of the series' two principal villains. The first of these is Goliath's former mate, now called Demona, played by Marina Sirtis of Star Trek The Next Generation.
You can run, but you can't hide. In fact, you can't even run.
Demona is at first thought to have been killed along with the rest of their clan, but it's revealed that she's somehow managed to survive on her own for the last 1,000 years. Unlike Goliath and the rest, however, the centuries have hardened her and left her jaded.
Can you forgive the humans for what they did to our kind?
The ones responsible for that have been dead for 1,000 years.
Then their descendants shall pay. I will have blood for blood.
Demona now swears vengeance upon humanity who she hates and fears, making she and Goliath irreconcilable, regardless of how much they may want each other to join their cause.
If you are not my ally, then you are my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
The details of Demona's history will be explored much more in the follow-up season, but even here she makes a strong impression, and Goliath's own history with the humans makes him at least see her viewpoint, even though he doesn't agree with the extremes she's taken her beliefs to. The main villain, however, turns out to be the man who awakened the Gargoyles in the first place, David Xanatos, played by another Trek cast member, Jonathan Frakes.
I'd say I've still got the edge.
Xanatos, like the rest of the characters, won't become fully fleshed out until next season, but he's still tons of fun, and an interesting departure from your typical sort of richer-than-God mastermind type.
It's alive! Alive!
I've always wanted to say that.
In confrontations with his enemies, he rarely becomes overtly hostile, preferring instead to just engage in polite conversation. Despite this, Xanatos is still quite cunning. He's got a penchant for setting up schemes in such a way that even when they fail, they don't actually fail, gaining him some secondary benefit as a result of the loss. Xanatos makes these sorts of gambits frequently enough that they even named a TV trope after him. Still though, his ultimate goal remains somewhat vague throughout the show's first season.
We'll worry about that later.
Because of his unique position in literally owning the hero's home, Xanatos is an overriding presence throughout the season, even during episodes he doesn't appear in.
I have to tell you, Mr. Burnett, I'm still surprised at being asked back here, seeing as how I busted your boss.
Mr. Xanatos is not the sort to harbor a grudge, Detective Maza.
He and Demona make common cause several times throughout Gargoyles' first season, mirroring the cooperation between Goliath and Elisa Maza. But while these two have a relationship built on mutual respect, in this case it's pretty explicit that these two characters only really see each other as means to an end, each considering the other to be more of their servant than anything else, and would likely drop them at a moment's hesitation if it was a benefit.
What's a knockout like you doing in a computer-generated gin joint like this?
Besides these two, Gargoyles is actually notable for including a number of prominent Star Trek actors in its voice cast, particularly from Star Trek The Next Generation. In fact, the only two of TNG's main cast members who don't show up on Gargoyles are Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden. In addition to Frakes and Sirtis, Michael Dorn, Brent Spiner, and LeVar Burton all appear in recurring or guest roles. Additionally, Nichelle Nichols from the original series, Avery Brooks and Cole Meany from DS9, and Kate Mulgrew from Voyager all make appearances by the series end. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. The only one of those who appears in this first season is Michael Dorn as Cold Stone.
Cold Stone.
A resurrected gargoyle cyborg made from the shattered remains of one of Goliath's former warriors. There are some other minor villains in the first season, though they've yet to be fleshed out and are still fairly run-of-the-mill at this point of the series. There's a gangster named Tony Dracon, then there's a group of mercenary, celebrity, action guys called the Pack, who are each named after a type of wild dog.
Fox, wolf, dingo, hyena, and jacko.
And then of course there's the mysterious Scotsman Macbeth, played by John Rhys-Davies, who has some unspoken history with Demona.
You know Demona?
Know her? I named her.
The series' plot blends fantasy and science fiction elements together and wraps them up inside what is at its heart a fairly straightforward story of heroes out of their own time, and it stays this course throughout the first season. Despite many of these episodes functioning independently, the series also puts a big focus on continuity, with each standalone episode still contributing some major detail or another to the series' meta-narrative. Some episodes even cut back to events that occurred over 1,000 years ago before the main characters were cursed. These provide additional relevant context for the Gargoyles' tragic origin, while simultaneously informing the characters' actions in the present. Gargoyles also has a lot of multi-part episodes. The series' pilot is a 5-parter, long enough that it was edited together to make a TV movie. Season 2 would go on to include several of these long multi-part stories, greatly developing its characters and just generally expanding the series' lore to epic proportions, creating a labyrinthine web of magic talismans, time paradoxes, dimensional hopping, and William Shakespeare. As for the first season, I still quite enjoy it and would definitely recommend checking it out. It's a great introduction to the world and characters characters, telling its own contained story while also setting up several key plot elements for the next season, which comprises most of the series. Though on paper, Gargoyles only has 3 seasons total, that's a bit of a misleading statement. Season 1 is your standard length of 13 episodes, as is Season 3. Season 2, on the other hand, is twice the length of both the first and third seasons combined, at a whopping 52 episodes. It's in that season where we'll really get to the heart of Gargoyles' story, its characters, and its place in animated television history. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with anyone else you think may like it. Leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on Gargoyles' first season or the series in general, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. As always, thanks so much to all of you once again for watching, and take care.
We live again!